Highguard was announced as the finale of the 2025 Game Awards, with millions watching, expecting a massive sequel or a genre-defining reveal. Instead, we got hit with this. A pretty generic looking live service hero shooter. But now that the game is out, and I've sunk some hours into it, I realized generic isn't the main issue. The issue is that Highguard has a serious identity problem. It tries so hard to be every popular competitive live service shooter at once, that they might as well have named it League of Valorant Paladin 6 Siege, but at least it's not a Concord level disaster. So before we get into the things that don't make sense about this game, let's talk about the things it actually gets right, because surprisingly, there's some solid foundations buried under all the noise. To not completely shit on Highguard this whole video, I have to give credit where it's due. The art style and aesthetic of this game is pretty decent. It's a good looking mix of the fantasy and steampunk genre, and the maps look like they're straight up out of a fantasy book. I also found myself enjoying some of the character designs, even if they aren't completely original, like Ken from Street Fighter if he decided to pick up an AK-47, or Genji from Overwatch if he was more of a tree hugger and less of a killer cyborg. And as generic as the gunplay is compared to other FPS games dominating the genre, the guns in the game felt really good to use, and gunfights actually felt pretty satisfying. Especially if you enjoy how gunplay in games like Apex Legends feels, they nailed how guns should feel in these games. The gun pool is also big enough where there's a good amount of options for different types of players. Burst rifles, assault rifles, snipers, shotguns, pistols, rocket launchers, they have it all covered. The gun upgrades that you get throughout the game add a lot more variety to the pool, where you can find busted ass guns like a double shot shotgun or a sniper rifle that is fully automatic. I found myself having a decent bit of fun messing around with the different gun options, to the point where I was genuinely having a great time in some of the games I played. The team fights can also be really fun when you and your teammates perform the special action known as working together. The game goes from meh to holy shit, this is actually fun as fuck. Unfortunately, for very short bursts at a time. Which brings me to the bad, or should I say, the confusing. This game has a lot of fixable issues, but there's so many of them, and people have so little patience for new games nowadays that I'm just not sure on how they'll retain a sizable enough player base to hang on in this market. Starting with the fact that Highguard is a 3v3 game where you fight on maps the size of mainland China. I feel like somewhere along the line, they wanted this game to be a 4v4 or 5v5 because there is just no way they thought 3v3 was the way to go for this game with maps this big. To provide some context, Highguard works in 3 stages: the looting stage, the shield breaker stage, and the raid stage. The looting phase lasts for a good 2 minutes where you're roaming around finding loot to fight with. However, if you want to have good gear, you are forced to separate from your teammates to explore different parts of the map for resources to spend at the shop, or as I like to call them, diamonds. Diamonds that you not only have to mine, but you have to perfectly time your hits against the ore to mine faster, which is probably one of the weirdest mechanics to add to a game like this to artificially slow down looting. But if one of your teammates gets into a fight, if you're even slightly mispositioned, your horse is literally not fast enough to get there and help them. And in most competitive games, not working or being around your team to help them out is understandably punishable. That's just bad team play, and most players can't really get mad at that. However, in Highguard, it just feels much more punishing due to how humongous these maps are. Basically, if you aren't attached to your teammates' hips or you aren't on comms, just get used to you or your teammates getting caught out, and there's not much you can really do about it. Especially if you happen to get teammates who have the mentality of, I'ma do my own thing. Now, I could tolerate this a lot more if the game could consistently look smooth while playing it, which brings me to the performance. I don't know how this is still a problem, but games coming out unoptimized in 2026 is still fucking diabolical to me, and at this point, I don't think it'll ever end. I am rocking a relatively decent graphics card in the AMD 9600 XT, which is comparable to the Nvidia 5070 Ti, 32 gigs of RAM, and an AMD Ryzen 9 CPU. I built my PC to handle things like HD video editing and streaming, and yet, I can barely run a free-to-play game at 60 FPS. It breaks my brain just thinking about it. They can always fix this, don't get me wrong, but it leaves the nastiest taste in my mouth when devs do stuff like this on release. Anyways, besides the performance and map size, the biggest issue comes down to the amount of mechanics they shoved in just to check off a list of things other popular competitive games are doing. I already mentioned the looting phase that reminds me a lot of Apex and other battle royales mixed with Minecraft. There's destructible base buildings that you have to defend by reinforcing walls within your base, which stall the enemy just like Rainbow Six Siege, and the bomb defusal portion in the raid stage of the game, which is very reminiscent of Counter-Strike 2 and Valorant, except for the one tiny additional detail that there's another bomb site on every base, and if it goes off, the game just ends.
you serious?
I'm not saying you can't take inspiration from popular competitive games. However, it feels like the devs threw a bunch of gameplay elements haphazardly into a blender, and we got Highguard, which makes Highguard a jack of all trades, but an absolute master of none that makes the game feel like a disorganized clusterfuck of game mechanics, where the game isn't necessarily bad, it's just boring. And I think that's even worse than being bad nowadays, since people can laugh at bad games, we meme them, we clip them, and we can have fun with the jankiness. But boring games just get uninstalled and sit in the Steam library, never to be played again. Highguard, while confused on exactly what type of game it wants to be, can fix a lot of its issues to address community concerns. Optimization can always improve, they can add new game modes and characters, fix some of the kinks on the gameplay side, but I'm just not exactly hopeful that they'll have the time to do so with how tired people are of games like this. I mean, when we think about live service games that completely failed, like Babylon's Fall, Skull and Bones, Suicide Squad, Kill the Justice League, and Concord, I'm very happy that this game didn't get concorded, but if we're being truly honest, surviving launch isn't enough to keep a live service game alive in 2026. No one wants to stick around for a game that tries too hard to be everything for everyone and ends up being nothing for anyone. I want to know what you guys think. Was I being too harsh on the game? Was it enjoyable for you? If you enjoyed the video, be sure to like and subscribe. Also, check out the videos on screen if you want to see more like this one where I'm talking about video games. And you can also catch me streaming over on YouTube and Twitch. Stay safe. Moment out. Peace.